We often see stories, whispers behind closed doors, tales in hushed tones about married women who risk everything for a younger man. It shocks us, it confuses us. We ask, why would she throw away her stability, her home, her family for someone so uncertain? But behind every scandalous headline is a deeper emotional void, a woman silently screaming to feel alive again. Many married women don't plan to cross the line. They don't wake up saying, I want to destroy my world today. No. What happens is far more human than we care to admit. It begins subtly, a conversation, a compliment, a connection. Not because she's hunting for excitement, but because she's starving for emotional attention. Years of feeling unseen, unheard, and unappreciated wear down even the strongest hearts. The younger man, he offers something that's long been missing: validation, admiration, presence. He listens, he smiles when she walks in, he notices her new dress, and for the first time in years, she feels visible. It's not about lust, it's about longing. It's not about rebellion, it's about reconnection with the version of herself she thought she had lost. But these moments of passion come at a price: guilt, consequences, loss. Most women deep down don't want to break hearts. They just want their own heart to feel whole again. This isn't a justification, it's a wake-up call for men, for women, for relationships. Every woman wants to feel valued, respected, cherished. When that disappears in a marriage, the cracks begin to form. And if we don't address the emotional drought, someone else just might. Emotional starvation is one of the most silent yet destructive forces within a marriage. It doesn't arrive like a storm, it creeps in slowly, day by day, moment by moment, until the person on the receiving end starts to feel invisible. For many married women, this emotional drought becomes a quiet ache in their hearts, a longing they often suppress for the sake of keeping the family together, maintaining appearances, or avoiding uncomfortable conversations. But over time, the absence of emotional nourishment takes a toll that cannot be ignored. When a woman enters a marriage, she brings with her the hope of partnership, emotional safety, and shared connection. In the beginning, most relationships overflow with affection. Texts just to say I love you, hugs that last a little longer, eyes that light up at the mere sight of each other. But somewhere along the line, life gets busy. Children, work, bills, routines. The romance fades, the attention dims. The woman who once felt like the center of someone's universe now feels like a background character in her own story. She's still there, cooking meals, folding laundry, helping with homework, but emotionally, she starts to vanish. What makes emotional starvation so painful is that it's often not even intentional. The husband might assume that everything is fine because the basics are being handled. There's no fighting, the home is running, and schedules are followed. But what's missing is the spark, the warmth, the effort to connect. It's the little things, a look, a compliment, how was your day, that go unnoticed. And for the woman on the receiving end, each missing moment is like a drop of water in a bucket that's slowly drying out. This starvation doesn't just affect her mood, it shapes her sense of worth. She starts questioning herself. Am I still attractive? Am I still wanted? Do I matter? These thoughts linger in the silence, left behind by a partner who no longer engages emotionally. And while she may try to fill that void with friends, work, or even her children, none of those things replace the desire to feel deeply connected to the person she vowed to spend her life with. It's in this emotionally fragile state that the presence of someone else, a younger man perhaps, can feel intoxicating. Not because he's better looking or more accomplished, but because he does what her partner no longer does. He sees her, he listens when she speaks, he compliments her, laughs at her jokes, notices the things she thought had long gone unnoticed. Suddenly, she doesn't feel invisible anymore. And in that validation, she feels a spark of life, of self-worth, of identity that she had lost. The truth is, no one wants to feel emotionally starved. No woman wants to beg for the kind of attention and affection that should naturally flow from someone who loves her. When that love becomes passive or routine, emotional starvation sets in, not as a moment, but as a slow fade. And in that fading, she begins to crave something more, something that reminds her she's still alive. There comes a point in many women's lives where they look in the mirror and wonder where the vibrant, passionate version of themselves has gone. They remember a time when they laughed more freely, felt spontaneous, desired, and alive. But now, somewhere between managing a household, fulfilling responsibilities, and maintaining appearances, that version of themselves feels like a distant memory. The desire to feel alive again is not about rejecting their current life. It's about reconnecting with the part of themselves that's been buried under years of duty routine and emotional numbness. This longing doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly. A woman might start to feel like she's just going through the motions, waking up, taking care of the kids, going to work, cooking dinner, folding laundry. And while she may love her family, there's often a dull ache that whispers, "Is this all there is?" It's that she's human. She craves meaning. She craves feeling something more than just tired. Many married women silently wrestle with the disconnection between who they are and who they used to be. They miss the excitement, the attention, the spark that once lit up their world. And while they may not openly admit it, they sometimes feel emotionally and physically invisible. Years of being seen as a caregiver, a problem solver, or simply mom or wife can chip away at the parts of them that once felt feminine, attractive, spontaneous, and free. That's when the desire to feel alive again begins to scream louder than the need to stay comfortable. It's not about age, it's about energy, youthful energy, not in terms of age, but in presence, the way someone looks at you and sees your soul, the way a younger man might listen with fascination instead of indifference, the way a simple compliment can awaken the butterfly she thought had died long ago. It's in those moments she begins to feel like herself again, not just a role, but a woman. This desire isn't rooted in immaturity or irresponsibility. It's often rooted in emotional starvation and suppressed longing. When a woman feels emotionally dead inside, the smallest sign of life, affection, passion, attention, can feel like oxygen to her soul. She doesn't necessarily want to break her marriage or destroy her home. What she truly wants is to feel seen, heard, beautiful, exciting, not just useful. And when someone comes along who reignites that spark, who looks at her like she matters, who awakens the dormant parts of her spirit, it's like discovering a lifeline. It can be dangerous, yes, but it can also feel irresistible, not because she's chasing youth, but because she's chasing aliveness that reminds her she's still a woman, deserving of desire, affection, and a life that doesn't just exist, but feels. When people hear about a married woman involved with a younger man, the assumption often leans toward lust, a fleeting physical attraction. But in many cases, the truth runs much deeper. It's not primarily about sex or physical desire. It's about something more profound and emotionally compelling, validation. For many women, especially those who feel emotionally neglected or overlooked in their marriages, validation becomes a powerful and intoxicating force. It isn't about a body. It's about being seen, heard, appreciated, and acknowledged as a woman with worth, depth, and value. In a long-term relationship, routines take over. The compliments stop coming, the glances grow indifferent, the touch becomes rare or mechanical. Over time, a woman may start to feel like she's fading into the background, just another part of the housework and to-do lists. She may still perform her roles, wife, mother, caregiver, but deep inside she wonders if her presence still matters on an emotional level. She might look in the mirror and miss the woman she used to be, the one who once lit up a room with her smile, who felt wanted, admired, cherished. Validation offers something lust never could, emotional recognition. It's someone saying, "I see you, you matter. You're beautiful, you're interesting." And when those words are spoken genuinely, especially after years of emotional starvation, they strike a chord that goes straight to the heart. A younger man may offer attention, admiration, enthusiasm, not because he's playing a role, but because he sees something in her that perhaps she forgot existed. He's not just responding to her looks, he's responding to her energy, her wisdom, her spirit. That kind of recognition feeds her in a way that touches her very core. The difference between lust and validation is subtle but essential. Lust may be physical, temporary, and surface level. Validation is emotional, enduring, and rooted in connection. It's about feeling valued as a person, not just a body. For many women, this kind of attention feels like water in a desert. It nourishes the parts of them that have been ignored for far too long. It gives them a sense of being alive, not just as a partner in a household, but as a woman with dreams, feelings, and a need for emotional intimacy. This need for validation doesn't make a woman weak or shallow, it makes her human. Every person wants to feel significant to someone else. Every heart wants to know it still matters. And when a woman doesn't receive that from the person she's committed to, she may be drawn, sometimes unintentionally, towards someone who offers it freely. That doesn't mean she was looking for an affair. It means she was looking for connection, for meaning, for someone to remind her of her worth. What the world often judges as lust is more often a cry for validation, a need not for excitement but for recognition. Because feeling seen, truly seen, is one of the most powerful experiences a human being can have. Subtle escalation is the quiet, almost invisible path many emotional affairs or romantic entanglements follow, especially for married women who never intended to cross any lines. It rarely starts with bold advances or explicit intentions. Instead, it begins in the smallest, most innocent places. A casual conversation, a friendly message, a moment of laughter shared at the right time. What makes it so dangerous is how harmless it feels at the start. There's no clear line drawn, no siren going off, just a gentle emotional shift that gradually grows deeper with each encounter. It might start at work, at the gym, online, or even in a social circle. A younger man smiles a little longer than expected. He listens when she talks. He notices things her partner no longer comments on, like her hairstyle, her perfume, or the way her eyes light up when she talks about something she loves. It doesn't feel threatening. It feels nice, harmless. In fact, it feels like a breath of fresh air to someone who's been emotionally suffocating for years. The first real connection is often emotional, not physical. They might start exchanging texts or messages, nothing inappropriate at first, just jokes, memes, little conversations. But with each interaction, emotional intimacy grows. She begins to look forward to his messages. She smiles when she sees his name on her phone. He becomes the one she shares her good news with first, or the one she vents to after a long day. This is where the emotional tether forms, often without either person realizing how strong it's becoming. Subtle escalation is so powerful because it bypasses the alarm bells that come with overt cheating. There's no initial guilt because there's no outright betrayal yet, but the emotional investment keeps building. She might start thinking about him during the day, comparing his attention to her husband's silence. The emotional gap in her marriage feels even wider now because she's tasted what it's like to be heard, to be valued again. And that contrast becomes painfully obvious. Eventually, there's a shift in physical behavior, a longer than usual hug, a touch on the arm that lingers, a shared look that holds more weight than words. Still, it might be easy to convince herself that it's all innocent, that nothing has happened, but something has happened. Emotional loyalty has already shifted. The heart is now split, and the mind is starting to rationalize what the body hasn't yet acted on. By the time a line is finally crossed, whether physical or emotional, it no longer feels like a decision. It feels like a slide, a slow, unnoticeable descent that now feels too far gone to reverse. That's the danger of subtle escalation. It doesn't come with warning signs. It comes wrapped in kindness, attention, laughter, and comfort. And by the time a woman realizes how far she's drifted, she's often already emotionally involved, deeply connected to someone who made her feel alive, appreciated, and wanted again. Inner conflict is one of the most intense and tormenting aspects of a married woman's emotional or romantic involvement with a younger man. It's not a simple matter of right and wrong. It's a daily emotional battle between desire and duty, between the longing to feel alive and the responsibility to maintain the life she has built. The struggle rarely shows on the outside because women in these situations often become masters of hiding the storm within. They smile, they fulfill their roles, they take care of their families. But inside, they are torn in ways that words can barely express. At first, the connection may have felt innocent, even therapeutic. It gave her something to look forward to, attention, excitement, the feeling of being seen. But as the bond deepens, so does the weight on her conscience. She starts to question everything. How did she get here? How did a few harmless conversations turn into emotional dependence? She never set out to betray anyone, yet now she finds herself pulled between two emotional worlds. One part of her clings to the life she has, the vows she made, the family she loves, the home she's nurtured for years. She knows the risks. She knows the pain it could cause her spouse, her children, and even herself. But the other part of her is desperate for the emotional fulfillment she has found outside her marriage. This younger man makes her feel desired, special, and most importantly, alive. He reminds her of who she used to be before life became predictable, before she started to feel more like a caretaker than a partner. Every moment spent in this dual existence feels like walking on a tightrope. There's guilt, deep, aching guilt that creeps in late at night when she lies next to her husband pretending everything is fine. There's shame, especially when she looks at her children and wonders what they would think if they knew. There's also fear of being exposed, fear of losing everything, fear of facing the truth. But perhaps the most complicated emotion is the quiet hope that somehow, in some twisted way, things might work out without anyone getting hurt. This emotional tug of war creates exhaustion that no one sees. She's constantly analyzing her actions, replaying conversations, and questioning her own morals. She hates that she's become someone she never thought she would be. She misses the simplicity of a clear conscience. Yet, at the same time, she's afraid of letting go of the one thing that currently gives her emotional comfort. Inner conflict is not about being indecisive. It's about being deeply human. It's the pain of trying to balance loyalty with longing, security with passion, and selflessness with the undeniable need to feel emotionally fulfilled. And even if no physical boundary has been crossed, the emotional turmoil is real, raw, and all-consuming. It haunts her in silence, leaving her stuck between two worlds, one she built and one that woke her up. Sometimes it takes the threat of losing something to finally see how fragile it's become. When a married woman finds herself emotionally or romantically connected to another man, especially a younger one, it can become a wake-up call not just for her but for the entire relationship. It forces a deeper look at the cracks that have long been ignored, swept under the rug, or accepted as just part of life. This moment of realization can be painful, but it can also be a powerful opportunity for change, healing, and reconnection. If both partners are willing to confront the truth. For years, a couple might live side by side, performing their roles without truly seeing each other. They share space, raise children, manage responsibilities, but they stop checking in emotionally. Compliments fade, physical intimacy becomes routine or non-existent. Conversations revolve around logistics instead of dreams. Slowly, emotional distance sets in and they begin to operate more like roommates than romantic partners. The love may still be there, but it's buried under layers of unmet needs. Miscommunication and fatigue. When a woman begins to receive attention, affection, or validation from someone else, it shines a spotlight on what's missing in her marriage. It's not necessarily that she wants to betray her partner, it's that she's been emotionally starving, often for years. The attention from someone new doesn't create the problem, it reveals it. That emotional connection she feels elsewhere becomes a mirror reflecting just how numb, neglected, or disconnected she's become within her own relationship. This can be a terrifying realization, but it can also be a gift because it forces honesty. It pushes both partners to ask the hard questions. When did we stop really seeing each other? When did we become so emotionally distant? What needs have been left unmet, unspoken, or invalidated for too long? These questions aren't comfortable, but they're necessary because without them, the relationship continues to drift, often toward an eventual emotional or physical collapse. For the partner on the other side, discovering or sensing this emotional connection can feel like betrayal, but it can also be a signal that something needs immediate attention. Instead of reacting with only anger or blame, it becomes essential to approach the situation with vulnerability and a willingness to listen, not to excuse the behavior, but to understand what led there, because behind every emotional affair is usually a pattern of disconnection, silence, and unspoken pain. This wake-up call doesn't guarantee reconciliation, but it does offer a chance to rebuild intimacy, restore communication, and recommit to each other's emotional needs. It demands effort, patience, and the courage to admit mistakes on both sides. Most importantly, it invites both partners to stop taking each other for granted and start fighting for the connection they once shared. Whether the relationship survives or not, this awakening can lead to deeper self-awareness, better boundaries, and more intentional love. Because sometimes it takes nearly losing something to realize how deeply it mattered all along. Here's a powerful and emotionally resonant ending for a younger man in the style of Rabecca Rosenblatt. So, before we rush to judge, before we label or condemn, let's take a moment to understand the quiet battles so many women fight behind closed doors. This isn't just about infidelity, it's about unmet needs, silent suffering, emotional starvation, and a desperate cry to feel seen, heard, and alive again. Some women don't set out to break hearts or destroy families. They're simply trying to rescue the pieces of themselves they lost along the way. This isn't about weakness, it's about humanity. And maybe, just maybe, if we paid closer attention, if we asked deeper questions, and if we truly listened to one another without blame or shame, fewer women would feel the need to seek outside what they're dying to receive inside. Because in the end, most women aren't looking for a younger man, they're looking for themselves.